Hey, it's Cliff. So I found myself watching this podcast between Joe Rogan and The Rock. And I got to be honest with you guys, the only reason why I tuned into this podcast is because I was really hoping that Joe Rogan was going to call The Rock out on his steroid usage. I thought that would have been incredibly entertaining, but unfortunately that did not happen. I don't understand why The Rock has been lying about his steroid usage over the years. It's pretty obvious to anybody with half a brain that he's definitely on steroids, and I don't think anybody would hold that against him because he's, well, an action hero. When it comes to action heroes, that's what I want to see. I want to see the biggest roided up guy going in there and killing bad guys, but that's beside the point. At some point in this conversation, they started talking about money, and it kind of led into what is basically the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, and seemed like Joe Rogan had an opinion on the FIRE movement, even though he wasn't talking about FIRE specifically.
I realized when I was young, I got a development deal for Disney when I was, I think I was 25, 26. Mm-hmm. And I got this development deal, and all of a sudden they gave me like, I think it was like $100,000. And I had money in the bank. I was like, this is crazy. Because I felt
how old were you at that? So I
was like 26, I think, yeah. And I was it was a development deal for a television show, and all of a sudden I had money. Like my whole life I was poor, and my whole life I was like wondering how I was gonna. When I was on my own, and it was like how am I paying the bills? How am I eating? You know, I remember like taking like a loose jar of change and counting it all out so I could go to Subway and get a sandwich. You know, like that kind of shit.
You don't forget that kind of shit.
You don't forget that kind of shit. But then the moment I got that check, I remember feeling light, like weight had been lifted off me. Like now I didn't have to worry about my rent. Now I didn't have to worry about food. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking immediately, oh, this is the key. You just got to not get to a place where you're not worried about your bills. If that means like spend less money, if that means like live a more prudent lifestyle, whatever you have to do. But get to that place where you're not worried about bills, because that shit hanging over your head causes stress that fucking ruins lives. It ruins people.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, now the most important thing is fucking keep going.
Yeah.
Like make sure you don't lose any ground here and keep going, because now you know what it's like to be successful. Continue that. Do whatever the fuck you have to do, whatever work you have to put in to continue that.
Yeah.
And then when I got to a place where I felt like I have enough money that I feel really secure, then I started to learn how to be happy.
So there it is. Even though Joe Rogan didn't realize he was talking about the FIRE movement, he's pretty much talking about the FIRE movement if you read between the lines. Now, some people are taking this conversation like he was saying, yeah, just be rich. Let's all just be rich. And that's a very pessimistic view on this. I think he was really trying to be more motivating than anything. Granted, I understand where those people are coming from. Not everyone's just going to run into 100K. But when it comes to FIRE and retiring early, it's relative to your income. So it doesn't really matter. Yes, you can be pessimistic about the whole situation and not do anything about what your current situation is. But if you want to be that guy, you're probably going to live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life. So I would try and take the advice and grind and just put back a little bit of your income. Let me show you actually what you can do here. So this is VTSAX. It is a common fund that you can just set your money in it and forget it. And just this year alone, it has done almost 20% in return. So just take Joe Rogan. He came into 100K. Had he invested at the beginning of this year, he would have had 20K right there. So now he's at 120K, and you can just see going forward the compounding that happens to your money when you're investing it appropriately, and that will lead into situations where maybe you have a boss that you hate. You don't want to work for this boss anymore. If you have money in the bank, you can tell that boss to go fuck off and you can leave, right? And it's what everybody wants to do, right? And then you can start seeking out situations that benefit you mentally, benefit you with your motivation to show up and go to work, which will obviously lead into you making a lot more money. So again, people will say, well, I'm not Joe Rogan. I can't make 100K just off the bat, but it's relative to your income. Let's say maybe you have 50K and you invest it. Well, that's relative to you and the bills that you currently have. If you can just put back a little percentage of that, you're still going to be in that cycle of compounding interest. Maybe you only have 10K, but you invested that 10K into VTSAX, and now look at yourself at 20%. You've made almost $2,000 for the year, which relative to 10K that you can put back is quite a bit of money. Now, granted, of course, the market's not going to go up crazy like this every year, but overall it goes up always. The market's always in a net positive. And I've pulled up compounding interest calculators over time just so people can get a visual of how much money there is to be made relative to you and your income. And by the way, that almost 20% here isn't even accounting for the dividend yield that's almost 2% on top of your money that you would have got. So I'm not even factoring that in. So when I was listening to this, it definitely sounded like he was talking about the FIRE movement. However, in a future podcast, he would kind of throw some shade at the stock market and maybe wasn't completely for it. As a suggestion, even though I'm sure Joe Rogan is invested in the stock market, maybe he's just suggesting that you should kind of round out your investments, maybe go for some real estate, go for some crypto, be kind of well-rounded so you're protected in this market.
No, and that's not because of capitalism. That's because Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, and now it's just this phony casino Wall Street money.
It's a shit system. It's a shit, scary system that you can never beat if it gets to make its own rules.
Well, it's not what it's not what America was supposed to be.
It's so wild. The stock market is such a wild idea that it's based on confidence, and you bet on companies.
Yeah,
you're essentially betting on buying and selling, and you can wreck them and you can own them, and and there's people that just play that game. All they do is like chase after businesses, short businesses. You could short a country.
Now, I understand what he's saying here. It is a very complicated system. I see the issues with not being backed by a gold standard. I get it. I know where he's going. I'm a Bitcoin guy, so trust me, I've been all the way through this. I know what he's talking about. But this is the system that we have. This is the game that you can choose to play or not play. And personally, when it comes to my money, I'm betting on the American empire. I don't think the American empire is going to crash anytime soon. I think people who believe that are crazy conspiracy theorists. So I plan to play the game, and I'm going to make my 20% returns and stack my cash and hopefully hit financial independence one day.
If you just hold your money, because this is what people used to do many generations ago, was the idea of just saving your money. You save it. But if you just save your money today, Joe, you're a sucker because of this system, right? Like if you just hold your dollars, you're just losing money actively. So you got to be chasing interest. In order to just not lose money, you have to be chasing an investment.
So he's pretty much proven my point. If you're just going to hold your money, you're going to get eaten by inflation. You need to be investing just to keep up with the returns that you're going to need for your standard of living. If you're not investing, you're probably going to end up as the Walmart door greeter. For my channel, that's what I want people to take from this. I look at these Walmart door greeters and I get so depressed that these people are in their 80s or older and they should be at home watching The Price is Right, but they're not allowed to because they didn't invest their money. So you need to be investing your money to avoid that situation. You should be with your grandkids at that age. You should be doing whatever you want to do at an old age. But if you're not investing in something, your future is working at Walmart as a door greeter, wishing you were at home with your nagging medical injuries. So just like he was saying, don't be the sucker. Invest. It's relative to your income. Just take a percentage. If it's even just 10%, I'd prefer it to be a lot higher than 10%. But you got to do what you can do with your income. But strive to get in a position where you can just get a side hustle or something. Just know that this is the future. That's your future. If you have nothing saved, God forbid you're hoping for Social Security. That's not going to be there for you. For the love of God, please just invest your money. That's all I want out of this channel. People need to invest. And you can just invest in something like VTSAX. You don't really need to understand the individual stocks or complications of the market. Just know that you can have a nice index fund and you don't have to be a stock market expert. You can just put your money there and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got for this video. For the love of God, invest your money. Invest, invest, invest. As always, thank you for watching.